My husband said I was no longer good enough for him and left with a wealthy woman. I chose to remain silent, but when he discovered that my hard work was the true foundation behind his success, his new life began to fall apart. One day my husband looked into my eyes and said, "You are no longer the kind of person I want. I need a life that you cannot be a part of." Then he left with a wealthy woman and I didn't create a scene. I didn't blame him, I simply stayed silent. Because sometimes silence is the only language through which a person protects their dignity. When I look back now, I still find it hard to believe how the same man I spent the best years of my youth with could so easily forget where his success began. But perhaps that is what happens sometimes. People reach the top and forget the roads that carried them there. We lived in a small but beautiful home in the suburbs of Chicago. The early years were completely different. We dreamed together, sat late at night at our kitchen table making plans for the future, and shared coffee while imagining that one day we would build a successful business of our own. I was always the person working quietly behind the scenes. When Mark started his company, I managed the finances alongside my own job, handled client emails, prepared presentations, and spent countless nights sitting in front of my laptop while he slept, helping turn his dreams into reality. Back then he always said, "I couldn't do this without you." But success has a way of changing people. As the company grew, our house became bigger, we bought better cars, and Mark became more involved in meetings, business dinners, and a world filled with new people. I remained the same woman. The woman who managed the home, attended PTA meetings, and smiled through every Thanksgiving dinner, keeping the family together even when exhaustion was quietly building inside me. I still remember those Sunday trips to Costco that used to be our little tradition. We would walk through the aisles with a shopping cart, laughing, buying groceries, and talking about retirement plans, our 401k, and our children's future. I thought we were building something strong. Then one day I realized I was the only one holding that foundation together. Mark started changing. He criticized my clothes, my opinions, even the simplicity of my lifestyle. One night he looked at me and said, "You are a good woman, but you are no longer enough for the world I want." I said nothing. Not because I had no response, but because I knew some people don't receive their answers through words. They receive them through time. A few weeks later, I discovered that he was leaving me for a wealthy woman who had a successful company, a luxurious home, and everything Mark now associated with achievement. People called me. Some offered advice, some showed sympathy, and others were simply curious. I listened to everyone, but I refused to hand my life decisions over to anyone else. I stayed silent not because I wanted to hide my pain, but because I wanted to protect my strength. For the first time in years, I looked at myself differently. I began to recognize the work I had done, the experience I had gained, and the abilities I had ignored because I never thought they were valuable enough. I went through the old records of Mark's company because I knew the truth. My effort was part of that success too. I sought legal advice, understood my rights, and slowly began rebuilding my own life. I didn't plan revenge out of anger. I took my time, thought carefully, and quietly made the decisions I needed to make. A few years passed and things changed. Mark's new life was not as perfect as he had imagined. The woman he left with loved the final image of success, but she didn't know about the sleepless nights, sacrifices, and hard work that created it. When the business faced difficulties and the reality behind certain decisions started appearing, the support Mark expected slowly began to disappear. One day Mark asked to meet with me. He didn't look as confident as he once did. He said, "I finally understand what you did for me." I looked at him and strangely I didn't feel happy. There was no feeling of victory. Only peace, because I had already moved beyond the point where his apology was something I needed. I simply said, "Sometimes people only understand the value of something after they lose what they always believed would remain." Today I live a peaceful life. My home may not represent the same big dream we once imagined, but it holds something much more important: peace. I still make my coffee every morning, look out the window, and feel grateful that I found myself again. I did not defeat Mark. I found myself. And that became my greatest success, because the day I understood my own worth was the day I stopped needing anyone else's approval to know my value. If this story touched your heart or made you think differently, please consider giving it a like and subscribing to our channel for more inspiring stories. Your support means a lot to us and helps us continue creating meaningful content. Thank you so much for watching, and we truly appreciate your time and support.